Hello, everyone. Our generation is considered very lucky for witnessing these unprecedented changes in finance and technology. Today's guest is a global fintech leader and top voice. He will share with us his view on trending topics and latest developments in fintech and how the future of money may look like. A special episode of Meet the Leaders. All right, folks, welcome to this special episode. My next guest needs no introduction, but I will give it a shot. Today's guest is from Armenia, lives in Hong Kong, and speaks 5 different languages. He is the PwC Global Crypto Leader and an adjunct professor at the University of Hong Kong, where he teaches the first fintech university course in Asia. Before joining PwC, he was with a fintech startup and previously worked with UBS Investment Bank in Hong Kong. He is a TEDx and global keynote speaker and host of the wonderful Fintech Capsules and Crypto Capsules social media series. He was recently named by Analytica as the #1 most influential individual on finance globally, and was also named by LinkedIn as one of the global top voices in economy and finance. His latest book, The Future of Finance, was ranked as one of Amazon's global top 10 bestsellers in financial services, and was recognized also by Book Authority as one of the best fintech books of all time. He holds a Bachelor of Law from the University of Montreal, 2 master degrees in addition to a joint global executive MBA from Columbia Business School, London Business School, and Hong Kong. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Fintech himself, Henri Arslanian. Welcome to the show, Henri. It's great to have you.
Great, thank you for having me. Very excited to be on.
Okay, first, it's worth noting that our show is a bit different. Instead of discussing one topic, we'll go and elaborate and discuss more than one topic, so we get as much value as we can from you since that you are here. So let's get to it.
Excellent.
I will start with the talk of the town, central bank digital currencies. You know, it's a big topic, but I would like you to describe it briefly for our viewers. And then please tell us the difference between CBDCs, cryptocurrencies, and stablecoins.
Absolutely. First of all, it's a great question. Great to be on, and thanks for having me and letting me have the opportunity to share my passion for the future of money and finance with your audience. Obviously, it's a very important topic. CBDCs are gathering a lot of attention. And you're right, they're very different. Central bank digital currency is very different from a cryptocurrency and a stablecoin. Let's start from the basic. Cryptocurrency most often relates to decentralized currency like Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoin, it's out there, and it's only 1 million Bitcoin, and literally nobody can control Bitcoin. I mean, nobody can ban it either. It's really out there. It's a decentralized currency that allows kind of a store of value, method of payment, or unit of transfer that people can use. But again, the value of Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency is purely offer and demand. So if everybody wants to buy Bitcoin, the price may go up. But if nobody believes there's any value, the price will go down. This is very different from a second type of digital asset that you mentioned, which is a stable coin. What is a stable coin? It's a digital asset that is backed 1-to-1 by fiat money, by traditional money. And what that makes is that if tomorrow morning I send you a Bitcoin, you'll be very happy. The problem is you don't know what the value will be a day, a month, or a year from now. However, if I send you a stable coin, let's say that is worth $1, it is worth $1 today, it'll be $1 in a week, in a month, in a year as well. So it has obviously kind of different purpose. It's very useful. People want to transfer money on a cross-border perspective, or if they want to do kind of have as a store of value that represents fiat money, but in a digital format. But this brings to the third type of digital asset, which is for sure one of the most exciting, which is a central bank digital currency. So again, what is a central bank digital currency? CBDC for short. It's a digital currency issued by the central bank. And what's really exciting with that is for the first time in a very long time, we may have a third form of central bank money. Today, there's only 2 kinds of central bank money that we have. One of them is cash, paper banknotes that you have that are a liability towards a central bank. Second are actually the reserves that your bank holds at the central bank. the account that you hold in your lovely bank is actually not central bank money. It's actually just pluses and minus, debits and credits within the account that you have at the central bank. So actually, what a CBDC is, for the first time, it gives people, everybody, the access to a third form of central bank money, a digital currency, kind of a digital format of paper banknotes, and that's super exciting. And there's many reasons why central bank may want to do that. For example, they're able to see the visibility, the economic activity in a country. Today, when you're spending your paper banknotes, the central bank or policymakers have no idea of that activity. And it's very difficult for them to measure. And also, it helps when you have a central bank digital currency at trying to stop the black economy, companies not paying tax, and kind of the whole informal economy, which it helps from that perspective. And also third, but last but not least, it also helps from a obviously monetary policy perspective, because you can actually embed the interest rate within the money, but also you can try to fight money laundering and corruption, which is one of the biggest challenges that we have today with the digital currency. So this is kind of some of the benefits. There's obviously a lot of downside. We can talk about that later, but these are some of the kind of the big elements when it comes to CBDC and how they're different from a stable coin and a cryptocurrency.
Still on the CBDCs, do you agree that they are just a temporary frenzy and they will go away? Especially that Facebook Libra project is experiencing regulatory pressures.
Actually, no, I would definitely disagree with that. Honestly, I really believe that the future of money, for sure, there will be an era where the era of banknotes will come to an end. And actually, this is as we're moving to digital economy, the central banks still want to be able to give to the public a form of central bank money that will just become digital. And that's why actually central bank digital currencies are getting a lot of attention today. I mean, just to put things in perspective, according to the Bank for International Settlements, today 80%, 80, of central banks are doing some kind of research or experimentation on the topic. And I expect this number to actually increase over the coming months and years, and actually a lot of the research to move to a real pilots and experimentation and production. This is not going to go anywhere just because this is where the economy is moving, and for some of the benefits that I mentioned before to central banks. When it comes to Libra, it's very interesting because obviously when Facebook announced Libra in June 2019, obviously acted as a catalyst to this whole CBDC movement, because obviously central banks are not very keen to see private company come up and actually get into the business of actually making money. And this is actually why you've seen the whole space accelerate since Libra was announced. I personally am a big fan of Libra. I think the Libra will be very useful for certain use cases. For example, it may not be very useful within a country. If you look at transfers or transactions within a certain country, they may not be perfect, but they work okay. Many countries have what we call RTGS systems, real-time gross settlements, fast payment systems. So generally, it's okay. Where this becomes a problem is at the cross-border level. For example, if somebody from Jordan is trying to send money from somewhere in Europe, for example, or to Dubai or anybody else, the average fee today for cross-border fees globally are 7%. This is the average globally. In many emerging markets, it's double digit. And this is the problem that Libra is trying to solve, is to make sending money as easy and convenient as sending a WhatsApp message or sending an email, frankly, regardless of how much money you make, who you are, which country you're born in, or actually what do you do. I think that's a very noble goal they're trying to achieve. So I'm actually quite optimistic on the impact of Libra, but also on the broader kind of longevity of central bank digital currencies.
Very well. Okay, another trending topic is the digital and neobanks. Do you agree that these banks do not pose a real threat to traditional banks? And how do you see this competition, if you may, evolving in the coming years?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I'm a big fan of neobanks, digital banks, challenger banks, virtual banks, whatever you want to call it. In each jurisdiction, they have a different name. I actually think the impact that these, let's call them neobanks, has had on the banking system is very positive. I mean, think about only from a retail perspective, not only this has forced the traditional incumbent banks on not only improve on basic initiatives like better customer service, better customer interfaces, better offerings are digital only, digital native. And actually, obviously, the entry of these neobanks has had a big impact on that perspective. But I would say where it's becoming even more interesting is some of the value add that neobanks are able to provide. For example, my traditional banks that I use are not data driven. They're not able to actually leverage a lot of data, my transaction activity that I'm doing to try to help me. For example, one topic that I'm focused a lot right now is financial health. I may go to the gym for my physical health. I may pray or meditate for my spiritual or mental health, but actually I'm not using fintech for my financial health. And actually, this is something I think the neobanks have done very well, try to give to the customers a kind of consolidated view of their expenses, where they're spending the money, how they should be able to save, how they should be able to invest, which is very good because it contributes not only on better financial education, but also on that, and that allows people to be financially healthy. And I think that's something that has been very, very positive. So overall, around the world, I'm very happy and very optimistic on the impact that they may have. I think if you're a traditional bank today, I hope you're looking at this challenger bank and actually trying to see how the offerings are providing it, because I can guarantee you a lot of them, traditional banks are not providing them. Sometimes they believe they do, but unfortunately, in many cases, the user experience, the user interface is far from being similar to what these neobanks are able to provide.
As you know, the pandemic accelerated moving towards cashless societies and branchless banking and so on. How do you evaluate the pros and cons, or the downsides and benefits of this move?
COVID has already, I think we were already undergoing the revolution of the future of money and the future of finance. And for sure, COVID-19 catalyzed the entire process. Let's talk about money for a great example. One thing we realized during the crisis is that people do not want to touch paper banknotes anymore because they're worried actually this may transmit the virus and actually maybe not the cleanest way of sending money to each other or doing payments. And what's been interesting over the last couple of months that in most countries around the world, when you look at the usage of cash as a form of payment has gone down. That's why we're seeing more and more digital payments. But ironically, at the same time, and this happens a lot in time of crisis, we're seeing record levels of cash in the system. Because what happens during financial instability times, people hoard money. And actually people withdraw money, try to keep money at home or in cash, just because of the financial stability that they're seeing right now throughout the world. And this actually presents a certain problem to policymakers where while there's less transactions, at the same time, there's actually more cash in the system. And this is what's catalyzing a lot of the conversation around central bank digital currencies. And the same thing happened with banking as well. I think the financial institutions that were using fintech as more of a marketing gimmick, saying, yes, we have innovation labs, and where mainly these were places where people were just wearing T-shirts to look cool, and it was a good place to show the students when they were visiting. These institutions actually were caught at a disadvantage when the crisis erupted. And this is why the organizations that were really genuinely were pushing the digital agenda were able to get an advantage in front of many others. And I think for when it comes to financial institutions, the way that this is becoming successful is when this is being driven by the top, when the leadership of the organization is actually really driving this change. It's not just something that is being done for marketing purposes by a certain innovation lab, but really top down, there's a very clear agenda of how to transform the organization and become digital first. I think those who are already on a journey, actually I saw the benefits of that the last couple of months, and those who didn't are now paying the price. And hopefully I hope for them, we'll be able to change pretty quickly on that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. Henry, you always say that, and you're right, that we are living the most exciting time in history of finance and money. As a futurist, what major milestones do you see happening in the next 3, 5, or 10 years?
Oh, wow. That's which I'm not sure I consider myself a futurist. I'll tell everybody that whoever tells they're an expert in crypto or in the future of money, you should run away. I spend 24/7 of my time in this space, and I have absolutely no idea where we're going to be 1 month from now because things move so fast. But I genuinely believe, though, that this is the most exciting time when it comes to the future of money and future of finance. I really believe our children and our grandchildren will study this period that we're going through right now and say, wow, this was such a groundbreaking moment. And there's a couple of reasons for it, because we're seeing a couple of big macro elements. I know from a monetary policy perspective, we are seeing right now record levels of quantitative easing, literally printed money being injected into the system at really unprecedented levels, which obviously adds to a lot of inflationary pressure that we see against currencies, US dollar and others. At the same time, we are seeing record levels of like Bitcoin adoption, Bitcoin awareness, for example, and institutional interest in that. At the same time, we're seeing the CBDC initiatives going on. We're seeing people don't want to use paper banknotes anymore. We're seeing record levels of the digital banking adoption. I think all these elements put together are really bringing it forward. And I think what's also very interesting is that we have over the last couple of years, and that's why I talk about my last book, The Future of Finance, you can see there, is we've seen a lot of innovations in different verticals. Fintech and AI, in crypto, and the data, cloud, and so on and so forth. And actually, I really believe we're getting at the point where it's a combination of all these elements together makes not only a 1 + 1 = 2, but makes a 1 + 1 = 33. And it's really amazing. It's a combination of all these technological developments that really are going to be very exciting to watch over the next couple of months and years. So that's why I'm very convinced this is a very exciting time. And frankly, all of us, your listeners, yourself, I think we're very lucky that we are a generation who will see some of these changes. And frankly, that we also have a chance to play a role in shaping it. And I think that's super exciting.
It is super exciting. Also on the future prediction side, some futurists say that the biggest financial institution in 15 or 10 years from now will not be actually a bank. It will be a giant tech company. What do you think of this?
This is like 4 years ago, I gave my first TEDx talk, and I mentioned this, that actually my daughter, my kids are probably going to open their first bank account with a technology firm. At the time, I got criticized, I got laughed at. I got many critics from bank CEOs to executives telling me I was an idiot. I had this imaginary dreams, technology firms were getting to finance. And of course, right now, only 4 years later, not a long time afterwards, the idea doesn't sound very stupid anymore, And so I'm a very big believer in the future of technology firms in financial services. We're seeing it already. You're seeing it from the US all the way to Asia. This is happening right now for a couple of reasons, obviously. One of them, obviously, a lot of these firms are tech-friendly. They're technology firms that also happen to be in financial services, not financial institutions that have to actually suddenly become tech first, which is a very different proposition. But I really believe that the innovation, the pressure to innovate will come from a lot of the large technology firms. I think where it's going to be interesting to watch over the coming years is really going to be the kind of the debate between what customers trust. For example, the last 1 or 2 years, we've seen a lot of pushback from customers on large technology firms, the Facebooks of this world, the Twitters of this world, saying that they have a lot of data on them. Obviously, we saw a lot of the debate around this from a policy perspective and also in the public discourse. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the trust towards financial institutions, which is relatively still high, and the trust towards technology firms, and what that impact has on who really is able to innovate when it comes to financial services over the coming years. But I would really say that I still think the financial institutions that we have today will still be here in 10, 20, 30 years. But I think the role may be very different. For example, I think it's very likely that we may see in many countries, technology firms be the interface with the customer, that interact with the customer, but actually the back end, the piping, the compliance, the settlement, the clearing, the behind the scenes, that is still being done by traditional financial institutions, which then becomes a commoditized business, low margin business, and the customer facing activity could be delivered by large technology firms. And that's the business where you have the customer, you have the high margins, and which is very exciting for technology firms. So I think very interesting to watch over the coming years how this evolves.
Interesting. Okay, let's move to some personal and leadership questions. Our show is obviously concerned with leaders. Now, being a leader yourself and a big name in your domain, who do you look up for inspiration and mentorship?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because who inspires individuals is very different from one person to the other. The way I always, I'm Armenian by background. I've been in a family where for the last 5 generations, we're all born in different countries. My great-grandfather is born in current day Turkey, and what's Aintab, now called Gaziantep. And obviously everybody was killed. They had to flee to Syria. From there, they did very well, and then they lost everything. They had to go to Lebanon. again, did very well. But that the war started. I had to move to Canada, and I was obviously then I moved to Hong Kong, Asia. And my kids were born in Hong Kong, and actually right now they're actually in Armenia. So it shows you how the world changes a lot from that perspective. Where I get a lot of inspiration actually is not by big political leaders, big sports stars. Really, the people who inspire me the most are actually immigrants. I always tell people that the key to success is hard work, but also to think like an immigrant. And what I mean by that is always, I always say you have to be a paranoid optimist. Be very paranoid of how the world is changing, how you're going to stay relevant, but also while remaining optimist from that perspective. I have many memories from my childhood when I grew up in Canada of these individuals who are 7 years old but are still working at a pharmacy delivering drugs to people. I remember we had a plumber who used to come to our place, who was an immigrant Italian. He's still working out in his 80s because he really believed in the value of hard work. And I have many, many stories like these throughout the years from Asia to Canada. I'm a big believer in the value of hard work and always try to move forward. I've been very public about this. I do not believe in a work-life balance if you're under the age of 40. I believe that's one of the biggest mistakes we tell young people is to believe in work-life balance, take it easy. And I believe that, yes, you may still be successful in your company, in your organization, but you're never going to be number one in the world or be a leader in your certain field if you're just focusing on work-life balance and taking it easy. It's ironic. I find a lot of people who actually preach these values of work-life balance tend to be later in life when they made money, they're comfortable, and it's easy then to talk about these kind of taking life easy and enjoying the sunshine. Whereas I think really the best advice, especially for a lot of your younger listeners, especially the ones, I'm a professor at the university here, and I tell this message to all my students. Unfortunately, the ones entering the workforce right now, they're entering in a very difficult time. Especially everybody that entered the workforce since the financial crisis had a terrible time, actually. And you can see it right now in the amount of wealth accumulated by this last 10, 15 years is way lower than actually what their parents were able to do in the same time. So I really believe that we still, unfortunately, it is what it is. The values of hard work, perseverance, I still remain very, very key. And I think that's very important for anybody, your listeners listening to this. I think as a leader, and that's your job as well, is try to vehiculate this message as well and be honest with people, be honest with students, be honest with your workforce on some of these elements.
Very interesting. What I love about you, Henry, is that you do not keep information to yourself. You share basically everything. You share how you film your social media series, even what equipment you use, how you prepare for your keynote speeches, and so on. But the question that comes to my mind every time I watch you is why? Honestly, why is this gentleman doing what he's doing? Why you started this? And what drives you? What's the motivation and the goal?
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned, I get every week, I get at least one or two people reach out to me saying, hey, I want to do videos. I want to do social media videos and so on and so forth. And it's literally, that's why I have my videos that explain how I do it. I'm a big believer in life that actually if you give, you will get more in return as well. And I've seen this over the years. Like you mentioned, all my videos, I give speeches, my tips on how to give speeches. I give how I film my videes. Everything is public. I share literally, like I said, the equipment that I use. I make no kickback on this. It's, it's pure equipment that I'll use on this purpose. So I really believe in the importance of sharing and empowering people, because what I've seen over the years is if you can empower people, 99% will not take it up on it. But it's that 1% of lives that you can change, and 1% of people that you can have an impact with. And those, you never know which way they can change the world. For example, I often get asked, why do I spend my evenings and my weekends writing books? I can tell you right now, you don't make any money writing books, especially books that are more academic in nature. But there's always, every month, I'll get an email from one person or another, from anywhere, some various places around the world, whom that has had a very big impact. They set up new companies. They set up actually new policy initiatives. Within their companies, they've done new things. So I really believe the importance of being able to empower people and then let them flourish from that perspective. And I stand by that, and I will hopefully be able to continue this for many years over the next couple of years as well. That's the reason I teach. But also when it comes to social media, for example, every week, as you know, I have my show, The Crypto Capsule, where I summarize what's happening in 60 seconds in the digital asset space. I do my Fintech Capsule, where I interview a lot of leaders, which, very similar to your show, actually. And I do a lot of these things. And the reason I believe is giving access to people. I think one of the biggest tragedies, especially in financial services, is that, yeah, if you live in New York or London and Hong Kong or Singapore, there's tons of fintech events you can go to. There's tons of fintech content, actually normal pre-COVID times. But actually, I really believe that everybody around the world, regardless of where you are, you should be able to have the access to the same resources and be able and how empowered with the knowledge to build what you want to do. I find today the biggest inequality in life, which bothers me, is one of the biggest determinants in your life is where you're born. Where you're born, which country you're born, which passport you hold has a lot of restrictions on where you can go, which universities, which countries will accept you, travel, and so on and so forth. And I find that it's absolutely unacceptable that one of the things probably the only thing you have zero control on can have such a big impact on your life. So I really try to have my little 2 cents and impact on that as try to empower people as much as we can. I really believe, and I said this to everybody, is that I really believe today, in 2020 and for the years to come, it's never been easier for anybody to produce content for social media. Literally, all you need is a phone. You need a basic microphone, and you're able to actually, in this platform, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, they encourage you to make content. And actually, this has never been easier. Actually, filming what we're doing right now, a couple of years ago would have cost you quite a bit of money. And right now, we're able to do it very easily. So I think it's a time or never. And I'm a big believer in the personal brand as well. I tell us to every young person, you're going to be working for an organization, but you need to be your personal brand. It should be Henri that happens to work at this organization, not Henri from that company. I think it's very important, and I think I expect this mindset to change a lot over the coming years. And personal branding becomes even more important in such a climate.
That's very interesting and inspiring. As a person who wears many hats, can you name your favorite thing? Is it consulting? Is it filming?
Yeah, it's as you said, I wear many hats, which is from my professor life, my author life, to my consulting career, and to my policy making and speeches hat. I would say the one hat I would love to be able to do more is actually more being in public life, serving. I live in Hong Kong, where obviously for various reasons I cannot get involved in political life, for example, or public policy life. And I would love one day to be able to serve the public and the community in a public capacity, whether it's an elected official and so on and so forth. I would say, but however, what I really enjoy even more than my job, even my teaching, is being on stage, be able to actually share, energize an audience. I have to say that's one of the greatest feeling whenever I give a keynote speech, especially in a pre-COVID space where, obviously you could have this big conferences. There's nothing more exciting than coming on stage and being able to share your passion and actually share this energy with your audience on topics that you generally believe in. And I think there's an energy that is created there that is very unique. So, God willing, I hope to be able to continue this for many years to come and be able to share and empower and hopefully inspire the next generation of finance talent from that perspective.
Very well. This has been a transformative year, Henri. We have learned how to adapt to situations we only saw in movies. We have created new ways of learning and socializing and so on. Can you name the most important lesson you personally learned from the crisis, and why?
Yeah, the crisis is very interesting because obviously I think it's had an impact on everybody's life in every country, right? I would say the lesson that I probably learned and actually reinforced in my mind was the importance of being agile. And when I said at the beginning, being a paranoid optimist. Like I said, I expect myself, for example, every couple of years to be able to completely change professions or industries. And I think that as everybody listening to this, back in the days, you would go to university, you would do 3 years of university, and that's it. You were done with learning. You would just go up in your corporation or your business or your industry. I really believe now that continuous education will be fundamentally important in constantly actually pushing ourselves outside of comfort zone. The way I do it personally, maybe interesting or a good tip for some of your listeners. Every month I put in my calendar, I put actually 1 hour block where I would go somewhere. I may sit in a park. I may go outside. I may go for a walk. But I don't bring my phone. I often bring a notepad, and I reflect, how am I getting disrupted? How is my competitors in my industry coming up with new things? Is there anything that I'm missing? What can I do to push the boundaries even more? And I really believe is that having this immigrant mindset, this paranoid optimist mindset is going to be critical to be successful for the years to come. So it's kind of being this attitude of being aware that the world will be constant change and that you are always agile enough to adapt accordingly. Still make plans. Every year at the beginning of the year, I make very clear goals. I make a monthly, personally, where I sit down with myself and say, okay, where am I with these different goals? Where am I? But at the same time, always remaining agile to be able to pivot as need be in the circumstances. I mean, I'll give you a very simple example. When I launched during the crisis, a lot of my video content that I produce, I adapted it quickly. Started making a lot of content that is educational in nature, just to be able to share with people, to be able to empower people on that perspective. And I really believe there will be opportunities in every crisis from that perspective. So I think really unfortunately, I think for a lot of people, the crisis has been catastrophic. I'm not only thinking physically, and because unfortunately there's been a lot of deaths and because of COVID and so on and so forth, but I would say even professionally, especially for your younger audience. And that actually, at least it's unfortunately, they're going to have even tougher time over next year to come. And this reinforces the importance of why you need to be always cutting edge, working harder, and actually being at the edge of your seat. What I do, at the end of each semester that I teach at the university, I literally bring a chair in the middle of the class and I sit on the edge of the seat. And I tell this to all my students is the day you are comfortably sitting in your chair, you're done. You need to be always sitting on the edge of your seat to be able to adapt and react accordingly to what's happening around the world.
So this was my last question of the day, and good times pass very quickly. I want to finally tell you that this was an absolute pleasure having you. I want to thank you for all what you do, for accepting my invitation, and for your time and these valuable insights. And I would like to say to you in Armenian, رأيه Henri.
And thank you very much for having me. And I look forward to being hopefully in Jordan soon in a post-COVID environment from that perspective. As we say in Armenian.
All right. Thank you, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you. And for anybody who wants to keep in touch, obviously I have my LinkedIn show that people can subscribe to. I have my weekly newsletter on LinkedIn, and I have my YouTube channel where I share a lot of videos, and on Twitter. So I'm across all the major social media channels. And so thank you very much for having me, and thank you for giving me the time, and for your audience as well, to actually let us into their lives to be able to share our passion for the future of finance and money with you all. So thank you very much for having me.
No problem. Thank you, Henri. And for those of you who are watching, thanks for tuning in. I would love to know your comments and notes about discussion topics. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow me on LinkedIn and Facebook. See you soon.